You're obviously making a political statement with your T-shirt.
I wouldn't normally, but it's sort of a reaction to, I've heard a lot of people say to me, and I've read in a lot of places about the first movie and increasingly about the second one. I've seen where people try to relate it to, the current situation, specifically the United States and their role in the world right now. And if you're going to compare, then you should get it right. I don't like hearing, I played a character who's defending Helm's Deep, and I don't think that the Two Towers or Tolkien's writing or Peter's work or our work has anything to do with the United States foreign adventures, at this time. And it upsets me to hear that in a way. And it upsets me even more that questioning what's going on right now, what the United States is doing, is considered treasonous, really. And how dare you say that, and how un-American of you. And really, this country is founded on the principle that if the government isn't serving the people, you at least have the right to say, wait a minute, what's going on? And there's no questions really being asked at large about what we're doing. Whereas in the Two Towers, you have different races, nations, cultures coming together, examining their conscience and unifying against a very real and terrifying enemy. What the United States has been doing for the past year is bombing innocent civilians without having come anywhere close to catching Osama bin Laden or any presumed enemies. And, as a distraction, we're now, apparently it's a given. We're hell-bent on increasing the bombing that's been going on for the past 11 years in Iraq. And I don't think that the civilians on the ground in those countries look at us in the way that maybe Europeans did, at the end of World War II, waving flags in the streets. I think that they see the U.S. government as Saruman,
As a threat?
Yeah, as a threat. And they're terrified and have been for a long time. And we are not the good guys, unfortunately, in this case. And
even though right after 9/11 there was an extraordinary amount of public support for the United States to do something.
I'm supportive of the United States. I'm an American, and I have nothing against patriotism. But if one is going to compare, then the comparison is quite the opposite of what's
let me just make
made.
sure the comparison, only because you and I asked you about the T-shirt at the beginning, and you said you made it yourself.
Yeah.
The idea, you object to the comparison of this film with respect to American involvement with Iraq or the Afghanistan war or the war against terrorism, to any comparison with the film, as because of your fierce opposition to American policy.
The idea is, that in that comparison is the United States is like the good guys in our movie against the bad guys in our movie, and I think the opposite is true, unfortunately.
We're the bad guys because we responded to
the people who are terrified at Helm's Deep, who are outnumbered in this incredible violence and desire to control, to destroy the people of Rohan and the rest of the free peoples of Middle Earth, to control their wills, to control their, infrastructure or destroy it. That's what we're doing in these countries. That's really what we're doing, unfortunately. And I'm not saying to anyone, to you or to you or to you, this is what you should believe. I'm just saying, why not ask the question, why are we doing this?
Sure.
And I don't like the comparison, and I keep hearing it, so I felt like saying something about it. I'm not really a fan of the saying, my country, right or wrong. Well, that's an incomplete quote, too. The rest of it is more reasonable. I'm more of a fan of saying, let's make an honest effort to get it right. I think the rest of the quote is, if we're getting it right, let's keep trying to do so, and if we're getting it wrong, let's try to get it right. I think he says something like that.
I want to turn from this, but let me just stay with the idea for a second, though. What would you have had the United States do after the attack at the Pentagon and at the Twin Towers?
I would not have continually bombed innocent civilians from 30,000 feet with no possibility of being accurate, and maiming and killing and destroying the lives of many more people than died at the World Trade Center. What does that do? Does bombing people make us safer? Does bombing people make us more loved or appreciated overseas? Will this be forgotten? Oh, well, it was just a little mistake.
What if they had been able to stop Al-Qaeda and you wouldn't have had, if there is the connection between the people think it is, in terms of the attacks in Kenya, for example, or other acts of terrorism against the United States and other countries?
I just
if
find
somehow by responding you can say, because most people believe that if in fact you don't respond, you're inviting more terrorism.
There's nothing wrong with responding, it's how do you respond. The fact that one even questions the way that we responded, that's considered some kind of fifth column thinking, that it's treasonous, and that those attacks are used as an excuse to limit civil liberties in this country, and that we are coercing other countries whose populations, England, for example, I saw a poll where 70% of English people say they are more afraid of George Bush than they are of Osama bin Laden and Saddam Hussein, because our government is incredibly violent and aggressive and rapacious, and we want to control those regions. It's beyond a response, and there are other ways, I would think, of responding. We've done this before in our history. Even in World War II, was it necessary to kill so many civilians in Dresden and places like that? Was it necessary to do things that way? It's hindsight and so forth. But here we are now. We've been doing this for a year in Afghanistan. We've been doing it for 11 years in Iraq. Can we not think about this? I read in the New York Times, which you have here, I looked at it yesterday, the front page is, it's not even, should we do this, or is it a question, it's just the countdown, as if it was a holiday countdown for the big war and this and that, and then the science or whatever section, it's bigger weapons and faster vehicles for the military, and then photographs of the women serving. It's all kind of fun, and it's like the people on the ground in those countries who are the ones who are being affected, they're invisible. If they're not American, if they're not European, they don't exist. They're disposable. And more of them have died in the past year than died at the World Trade Center. What does that mean anything? And now, just because we focus on Iraq for many reasons, not the least of which is oil.
But not only oil.
And, some kind of vendetta maybe that our president's father has. Who knows what the reasons are? It doesn't really matter.
But if we're going to suggest those two, and I know we want to get on, and I think I have some respect for you for the candor and the forthrightness, I know I do, of your views, and invite you back to this program because we talk about Iraq a lot here.
Right.
Before I turn back.
Just a dialogue about it, that's all, I mean, if somebody wants to compare our movie, which is just a movie.
Yeah. But people say our movie is a pro-war movie, too, which I also have a problem with.
Yeah.
Elijah, you essentially agree with what Viggo's saying?
I agree with questioning, absolutely. I agree with asking questions, which I don't know if people do enough in that kind of honest way.
Yeah.
Let me,
interesting thing is you make some of these political points, the president's supporters would want me to contest each one, and there's no time for me, or if you were making an opposite political statement in support of the president, then people from the other side would want me to contest it, and we can't do all of that now. But we'll come back to some of these as it pertains to this particular movie. Here is another clip in which you are being questioned about your presence in the writer mark. Here it is.